there, all you funky fiends and jazz dads. This week we are going to be celebrating Jazz Fest by festing at home. And I'm so excited for this week's class because we are going to be doing crawfish bread, one of my absolute favorites during Jazz Fest. My name is Miss Jenny. I am here with the Southern Food and Beverage Museum here in New Orleans, although actually here at home just like you. We can find the recipe down in the link below. It's also fun with activities and there's an exit ticket. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing you want to do is you want to get your French bread. Well, I don't have French bread because everyone in the mama wants French bread. So I have to make my own a little bit. What I'm going to do is I am going to take a knife, I'm going to cut down this loaf, and then I'm going to slice those in half. You want something that has a serrated knife so it has little bumps and scoops coming out of it, and you're always going to point down. So I'm holding it to anchor it in place, and then I'm pulling it back, just like this. Now I have a beautiful little half loaf, just like that. And I am going to cut this in half. Be very careful because you always want the flat side down, but not this time. And I'm not going to cut it all the way through. I'm going to cut it right until I start to feel some tension, and that tension is the crust. And I'm going to scoop it open kind of just like this. I'm going to put this on my baking sheet. I have preheated my oven to 375. I'm feeling that tension here, so I'm scooping it out and folding it like this. So I've kind of come up with my own sort of version of French bread today. That's just what you have to do when there's not a lot of stuff in the grocery store. The next thing I want to do, I'm going to take some mayonnaise, and I am going to put, I need a half cup of mayo, so I want 1/4 of a cup on either side. So I'm going to take my half cup and start scooping it in with my knife. This is real gross. You want to make sure that it is packed. So put it all the way down. It is dripping everywhere. For you mayo fiends out there, this is perfect. Scrape your knife and then push it down to the very bottom because you don't want there to be big old gelatinous holes in here. Almost done. Got quite the mess. Now I'm going to use my knife, get all the edges, and then scrape it flat. There we go. Push this to the side, pull my crawfish bread right over here, and then I'm going to take my knife and I'm basically going to cut it in half and then scoop out some mayonnaise and spread it on my French bread. I'm going to do half of it for each side. So if I have half of a cup of mayo and I have to split that between my bread, how much mayo does each slice of bread, each side of bread get? Do you say 1/4 cup? You are correct. Now that I have properly mayoed my bread, I'm going to stick this to the side. And we are going to do a little bit of onion chopping. I got a good chunk of them done, but you are going to need to do some all on your own. So let me give you a little quick tutorial on how to do that. You always want to keep your onion with the flattest side down. This right now is leftover onion. That's going to be fine for today. If you're cutting a whole onion, you want to cut off both ends and then cut in the half right down the center. Peel off the top 2 layers because they're kind of hard to chew through. Even when they're cooked, they're really tough. And then that is going to be your flattest side down. When you're chopping things, you always want to give your hand the most amount of room to anchor down. By anchoring, I mean you have your dominant hand. For me, that's my right. For you, that might be your left. So you want to give it something to hold. So I'm going to have my flattest side down. I'm going to hold it with my anchor, my non-dominant hand, and I'm going to push down to anchor it. I'm not going to push out and away. I want to push down. So here I'm going to start cutting small strips. I want to make sure that my knife point is down, and then I move my wrist so that the back of the knife hits the cutting board. Now this is no longer the longest, flattest side, so I tip it so that it is stable, and I'm going to do more strips until I'm done. Now that I have all of these together, they need to be a little bit smaller. So I'm going to get them into a group like this, and then I'm going to chop them. Now, this is only with a non-pointy knife. I am an adult, so I'm going to do it, but it's called a pivot. It's how you get things finely chopped as opposed to big chopped or diced. You want to hold right here, and you're going to pivot back and forth like a windshield wiper while keeping the knife point down. Watch. See how I'm moving my back hand, but the knife point is staying in the same spot, and the knife is moving like a windshield wiper. You might have to do it a couple times, so then you use your knife to kind of gather it back together, and then you do it one more time. You would do the same thing for garlic, anything you want finely chopped. Then I'm going to brush off my knife and move it to the side. We're going to get our power going. I have it on high heat, and I'm going to talk a little louder. If you hear a little feedback, that's because of my induction burner. You need to make sure that you have a magnetic pan. This one's really spinny for some reason. And I have 2 tablespoons of butter. Shockingly, this is basically all that was left over. I'm going to put this in here on high heat to start cooking. And while that starts cooking, I'm going to show you how to cut my green onion. Green onion's going to go in a little bit later into the recipe, but not a crazy amount. So with green onions, what you want to do is you want to put them down, hold it or anchor it. Remember, you always want the most room possible. And you're going to get the roots off, just like that. Just nip that tip. Now you want to do small wheels. If you've ever had carrots, you might see that they come in sticks, but sometimes they come in wheels like this. That's what we're trying to do. Think of the wheels on a car. Now the skin can sometimes hold up your knife, especially if you have a duller knife. So you want to make sure that you're going really slow. This isn't professional chopping. You don't have to do. Hold it and move your hand as you cut towards it. Getting too close, move it back. And I want the green and the white parts of my onion. When the green part starts to get a little too tough and it starts to feel soft, almost like material, we don't need that. We're going to put that to the side. Right, my butter is starting to melt, which is fantastic. Once I don't see that there is this thing anymore, this pat, I am going to take my heat down and add my onion. All right. I'm going to take that down to a medium heat. And I want to make sure that I have 3/4 cup of onions. Let's see where we're at. 3/4, right there. I'm going to put that in here. Use your hand or a spoon to get all the onions out of that cup. And then you are going to make sure that all of the onions are covered in butter. So this is where your arm really needs to come in. You're going to hold with one hand, just like you need to on a stove. And then you are going to use your spoon to get all of the onion coated in butter. We're going to make sure that this cooks for about 5 minutes. Now that my onions are starting to become translucent, or what that means is they're becoming see-through. Lucent means light, so you can see light through them. When you're chopping onions, it's white, but as you cook it, especially in oil, it becomes a little bit more see-through. You can also smell a great aroma. There's almost nothing better than smelling onions, especially with butter. But we're going to take it up a notch, and we are going to actually make it smell even better in our house today. I am going to take 3 cloves of garlic. That's the kind of garlic I like to hear about. Now, if you have pre-minced garlic like I do, 1 clove is 1/2 teaspoon. If you're chopping it on your own, I might suggest asking an adult to help you. You need a knife that's a little bit sharper than most in order to get it the size that it needs to be, which is minced. Remember, minced is small, dice is a little bit bigger, like a dice, and cube is the largest. We usually reserve that for potatoes. So right here, I have my 1/2 teaspoon. Do you remember how many cloves we needed? Look at your recipe. It was 3. And 1 clove equals 1/2 teaspoon. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. That is a lot of garlic. I love it. We're going to mix it all together, and we're going to do this for about 1 to 2 minutes. You're going to be able to smell the difference. The older you get to, the more you're going to be able to tell what the difference is between burning and cooking, but it's going to be this beautiful aroma that smells like toasted garlic, and after 1 to 2 minutes, you're going to know it is time. If it starts to smell acrid or burnt, that's the time that you want to take down the heat, and you might have even gone too far. So 1 to 2 minutes, stirring like I am, just like this. That smells amazing. I'm ready for my next set of ingredients. It's been about 2 minutes. Now it's time to add the next 3 ingredients. I've got my 1 pound of crawfish. I'm going to put that in right now. All of this gooey juice, you know what that is? That is crawfish fat. A lot of times you can do this by peeling a bunch of crawfish and then adding it yourself. Now, I was specific to get Louisiana brand crawfish. If you go to the store, sometimes you see 2 types of crawfish. One is pretty cheap, it's about $9, and that is going to be made in another country. Because we're here in Louisiana, we want to do our absolute best to support the people who are growing and farming, and so I chose to go Louisiana, which is basically double the price. Now, that might not be your situation, and you might not have crawfish readily available. Once these are mixed together, the crawfish, the onions, and the garlic, we are now going to do 3/4 cup of green onion. I hope this is 3/4 because it's all the green onion I have. These just roll everywhere. All right, where are we at? Well, we're at a 1/2 cup, unfortunately, but that's all I have, and a lot of chances that might just be all you have too. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that in, making sure to scoop all that I can back in there. And get these green onion bits on my cutting board. Welcome! Next, you're going to do 1 tablespoon of parsley. So I'm going to eyeball this. If you have a tablespoon, use it now. But because I'm an adult, 1 tablespoon usually fills the cup of my hand like this. I'm going to sprinkle it in. And now I'm going to mix everything together. How do you know when something is properly mixed and we can kind of set it down and let it simmer? Do you have any ideas? What does mixed look like to you? Maybe talk to the adults about it real quick. Well, here we go. Mixed to me means I don't see big chunks of crawfish tails without any onions or green onions. It really helps when you're cooking with different colors because then it all comes together and you can see where everything is. We're going to let this go ahead and cook right until the crawfish tails are all heated through, probably about 5 minutes. Now that my crawfish tails are completely heated through and it's starting to smell so tasty in here, I'm going to add even more tasty ingredients. And the first of many, many cheeses. I'm going to put an entire package of cream cheese in here. Cream cheese is a little bit weird how it has this opening. I like that it's in foil, but you have to take the seam and then you hold it down on the table and then split the seam with your fingers and peel it back like this. There we go. one big giant thing of cream cheese. I'm going to take my spoon and put it in here. Now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of Cajun seasoning. Now I don't have Cajun, I have Creole. The main difference is your Cajun is going to give you a little bit extra kick. Another thing that's unique about what I have going on is this is salt-free. I figured there was enough salt both with the packaged crawfish tails and all of the cheeses. I don't really need to add any extra salt. So I'm going to use my Creole seasoning, and again I want to do this over here so that I can put less in my teaspoon if I need to. Shake it to be even. Use a tiny bit more. There we go. You can see flat across. Shake it all around. Now that I have my spices in and I have my cream cheese, I'm going to use my spoon to start breaking up the cream cheese and mixing it around. Oh man, so many yummy cheeses. Eventually it's going to melt, but what this does is by breaking up this big old log of cream cheese, I'm able to have it melt faster because more surface is going to be touching the heat. If you just have a big brick, it's only going to be one side, top, and that's it. That's going to touch the heat. But if you break it up with your spoon into chunks kind of like this, and then you mix it around, it's going to have more sides touching heat, and then it's going to melt faster. It's also going to want to stick to your spoon because that's what cream cheese does. You're going to add this, spin it around, and then we're going to add our final ingredients. Put it in the oven. We have our crawfish topping. I'm going to turn this off, let it sit over here, and now I'm going to focus my attention on the toppings. We're going to hold this over here. Hopefully, there we go. I have already grated a whole bunch of pepper jack cheese. I honestly don't remember how much cheese is in the recipe, so I'm eyeballing it right now. That's how I feel about cheese on a regular basis. So I have my pepper jack cheese, and then I'm also going to add to that some Parmesan if I can figure out how to open this container. It's like less than a cup, but there we go. Put that in here. Well, that's not closing. Now that same teaspoon that I had for my garlic, I'm going to use paprika. Now it calls for sweet paprika. I don't have sweet paprika. You have some, feel free to send it this way, and so I can have some in my kitchen too. But I have something called gourmet paprika, which sounds very fancy, and I have no idea what it means. Oh, some already fell in, which is great. That means I don't need that much in my teaspoon. There we are. You can see that red right there. I'm going to take my spoon right here and just lightly mix it together until I don't see that giant clump of paprika that I just dropped in here. So you fold it, which means you put your spoon or stirring utensil on the bottom and then fold it with that into the center. There we are. Everything's ready. It's time to assemble. Okay, I have my bread right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to even out my crawfish mixture in the pan. Then, like so. Then I'm going to put it in two with my spoon and separate it in the pan into two sections. Like that. Then with those two sections, I'm going to make sure they're nice and even. Add some crawfish if they need it. I'm going to separate those into two with my spoon. So when you are done, you should have 4 relatively even quadrants in your pan. This is going to help you so much because then all you need to do is scoop and spread, sprinkle with cheese, and you can turn yourself into a little, add a little on that assembly line. So my first one, I'm going to go for the middle. I don't want to do the end because if something falls over, it's not going to be very tasty and it's going to fall and get dirty. Use the back of your spoon to spread it out. There we go. Make sure you cover as much as possible onto your bread. Time for the next one. Again, I'm going with the center one. They kind of balance each other out. There's a lot of weight that's put on these slices of bread with the addition of the crawfish. And so, if you do the outsides, it might tip them. Gotta get all of that cream cheese, ooey gooey crawfish. Now I'm gonna do the ends. I need to make sure I have a hand, and about, see, I already did it. It might help if you use a different type of spoon, like a spatula, or an actual spoon that you would drink or eat soup with. And then use the back of your spoon to spread it out so it's even all the way on the tips. You don't want to see any of that mayo underneath. Got my final one. I'm supporting it with the bottom of my hand or with my thumb. Spread it out. This has been a really popular one. We did this at camp one year when we celebrated Jazz Fest. We made mango freezes and hibiscus tea. This was actually for the teen week, but it was so popular that we brought it back for our 7 to 11-year-olds at a later camp. Just the crawfish bread. I'm going to scrape the pan. Make sure I'm covering it using my finger. Scrape the spoon. You could also use a spoon to do what I just did. Whoop. All right. Now I'm going to take my bowl and I'm going to look at it and try and see it in 4 different sections. I might even do the same where I put my hand and separate it into 2 kind of troughs. Then I'm going to take half and I'm going to sprinkle it down one of my crawfish breads. The other, sprinkle it down the other one. Yeah, this little dainty one on this side is like, please, make me special too. There we go. Voila. You can see that we've got our crawfish bread ready to go in the oven. I've got my oven preheated for 375. These are going to go in here for 15 minutes. I'm going to see how they are, and we'll see you soon. So I put my crawfish bread in the oven for 15 minutes, and then I set my broiler for 6 minutes so I could get that ooey gooey crispy crunch. What do you think? It looks pretty good, huh? And it looks even better in person. Look at that. You can see how the cheese is all crispy. That's what happens when food goes in the broiler. It gets that nice brown crust on it. Oh man, this is going to be really good. Well, I hope you have enjoyed it today. It's been so much fun. I really wish we could be festing together in person, but instead we'll be festing in place. And please share any pictures you have with a hashtag SoFabKids. Feel free to like, subscribe, share. That helps spread the news. And you can always send me an email at Jennie, Jennie, @southernfood.org with any questions you might have. We'll see you next time. Oh my God. That's an unbelievable amount of cheese.